Welcome to this introduction to getting started with ProjectLibre Cloud. ProjectLibre Cloud is different than the desktop version. The desktop version we're very proud of. It's been downloaded in every country in the world and all 7 continents, even managing projects on Antarctica. The cloud version is for virtual teams and for teams and for remote working. I will show you the differences, and you can import your existing ProjectLibre desktop files, or if you have Microsoft project files. So when you provision in a company, you log in. So I'm going to sign in. I'm signing in as a role of an administrator and project manager. And the first screen you see is our dashboard. Now, to kind of explain it for anyone that's familiar with ProjectLibre Desktop or Project or Microsoft Project, this project tab here, resources, report, calendar, those are very similar, and you'll see the similarities. Now, ProjectLibre Cloud has been completely rewritten from scratch, but it shares the same characteristics there. What is different is it's role-based, and it also has a dashboard and a portfolio. So the role-based, if I click on administrator, as I'm logged in as an administrator, you can see that we have different roles. The roles that are grayed out are standard roles. You don't change those, you can clone those. So for instance, a team member has these permissions. And if you could see grayed out there, for instance, they could see the resource pool. If you did not want team members to see the resource pool, you could clone that and have a different team member. And for instance, maybe I do want them to see the work breakdown structure, so I could drag that over. So whenever a user logs in who's a team member would in fact see that option. If I take a look at users, I've got some users set up here, and I'll log in later with these. I'm logged in as an administrator. Connor OB is a project manager. Kylie is a team member. Kelsey is a portfolio manager. Mindy's a resource manager. These are all different roles. I have Emmett logged in again as a project manager, and then there's Team 2 testing that has that cloned role, which has different permissions. So when each of these people log in, they get a different view of ProjectLibre Cloud. We also have the concept of teams. So I've got an exec team here, and Mark, Mindy, and Emmett are on this. So if I assign a team to a project, only those people and the administrators can see the project. And I'll log in a minute. Again, if you recall, I mentioned Emmett is a project manager, as is Connor. Connor's not on this team. So if I assign a team to a project, which I have, the exec team is on project 3, Connor will not see that in the dashboard or the portfolio. I could change the teams very easily if I want to say the PM team is going to be on this project instead. I could just simply drag that over. And when you create the teams, again, it's as easy as dragging over. If I wanted Olivia on the team, I could drag her over, and now there's 4 people on the team. So that's what we're doing. Again, roles give you your permissions when you log in. Users have a role, so they have their permissions when they log in. You can or can't use Teams if you want. The default on projects is that all users can see it, but again, you can switch that. If you've got a company that's based in France and perhaps has operations in the United States and Canada, you could set up 3 teams or more, and you could have that segmented off. So the administrators and executives and portfolio managers can see everything, but the project managers and team members are restricted on doing that. So again, the first screen you default to is your dashboard. If you're new, you may not have any information there, but it's very quick, as in a minute, to set up your dashboard. If I click on this gear here, you can see that it grays out, but I've got 4 quadrants, or 4 quadrants, and there's panels in each one. So it's a 2x2 grid. If I only want one column, so perhaps it's just 2 panels stacked on top of each other, or if I want only one row, so there's 2 panels horizontally aligned, you can just do that very quickly. I'll leave it as a 2x2 grid. You can also set filters here. you can see that I've got 3 projects displaying here. I could put a formula in to do that, but I've got whatever I would like. I can select projects, click this, and then select which projects I want to display in the dashboard. And then even the panels themselves. This is a list of the group of panels. If I wanted a donut chart in this quadrant instead, I could just grab donut chart and pull it in there. If I want a stacked horizontal chart, I could do that, or a vertical chart. I'll go back to the vertical bar chart. And so now I've set up my dashboard. So if I click back off on that, now each panel, you can configure what you're seeing in the panel. And by doing that, I click on the gear for that panel. And if you notice, my menu here is cost, actual cost, and remaining cost. If I look at the field list, it's cost, actual cost, and remaining cost. If I didn't want to see cost, just the actual and remaining, I could just drag that to the left and I would only see 2 bars. I could do the same thing with this pie chart. The pie chart is displaying information that is cost. If I instead wanted that to be actual cost to be displayed for each project, I could drag that in there and this would be displaying actual cost. The donut chart is showing work. Okay, instead I could do actual cost again, cost, work, whatever you want, and it'll show for those projects. Now, this bubble chart, I've indicated what I want the X and Y axis to be. So the vertical axis is benefit for the project, and the horizontal axis is indicating project priority. I've said the size of my bubbles will be cost. So you can see project 3 here is the largest costing project, and it's got a very high priority and a very high benefit. So this will show you an indication of the projects that you've selected to display in your dashboard. So the dashboard is different as well. And then portfolio. This is showing summary bar charts of each project. So these are project bar charts. You can see some of them have baselines in them, some do not. And this is a list of the projects. Again, I'm logged in as an administrator. If I was a project manager and I was not on one of these teams, I would not see one of these projects. But if I scroll over, you can see the costs, actual costs, remaining costs. We've got benefit, risk, priority here, and you can give them scores. The project status on this is planning, active, on hold. Again, if this one planning, if this is now active, we can do that, and we can say the budget status is green lighted, as is the schedule status. This project, which is on hold, we can say the budget status is yellow, the schedule status is red, and then we could do the same thing here. So you can come through and you can give statuses to your various projects. I will run through in a minute the importing of projects, and I'll actually import a couple projects. But again, you can assign teams here as well as in that administrator screen. I can also import projects, which is this icon, or I can open a project. So I'm going to open project 1 here. And when I do that, it pops me over to the project tab. Now, this is what you will be familiar with from ProjectLibre Desktop. Okay, so I can come through and add a series of tasks to this. I can click on a link and say finish to start. No, it's start to start. I can do all of that with this screen. The other thing I can do, and let me go back to portfolio, I can also add a project. So I'm going to add this project, and it's just saying it's project. I could put, it's the welcome project. Okay, and if I click on the welcome project and open that, it's going to be blank. So I could put in a series of tasks. I could say summary, design, development, document, test, and we'll do the rollout of this little project here. So we've entered our tasks. We can enter durations on there. I can say 10 days, 10 days, 5 days, 10 days, and we'll make rollout a 0-day milestone. So the other thing we can do is we can come through and we can link. We put the cursor in a bar and we drag to the other bar. And by default, it's finished start, but I'll show that in a minute that we can do other precedence relationships as well. So now we've got our project with our precedence relationships. I can highlight these and indent them. And when I indent them, I now have a summary structure. And you can do that multiple times and set up different summary structures, as I'll show in the future. I can also come through and click on a task, and I can assign a resource to that. So I'm going to assign Emmett to this task, and I'll say development. I'll put Olivia Rose on this task, and you can see the names pop up next to them. So we can assign resources here. We can update the percent complete. I can say this is 40% complete, and you can see that anchors over there. There's also an icon, and again, if you cursor over any of these icons, it'll tell you what the action is. Here it says save baseline, so I'm going to save the baseline, and I'll say for the entire project. We could just do it for select tasks, and I'll say save the baseline. And so now I've got my tasks, I have a summary structure, I've got my resources assigned. If I was to come through and say, this task is not a finish to start, it's a start to start. I could click on that and well, it's the wrong one. Let me do that on both of those. I could say this one is start to start. Say okay, and you can see now these tasks start at the same time. However, my baseline is still anchored out here, and same thing for the summary structure there. But I could also say, okay, these start at the same time, but no, this one starts 2 days after the other one starts. And when I say okay, you can see it now starts 2 days after the previous one starts. So it's very easy for us to go through and model the project. And again, this is in your browser, so anyone from the project can access this. That same summary structure sets up your work breakdown structure where information rolls up, and the same thing with your network diagram, where you can actually have your network diagram here, and we could come through and change the precedence relationships again. In fact, let's just drag that down through, click on this, and you can see that's now changed. We also track work. Okay, this is a little bit messy because I've got everything shown. But on the design task, I've got Emmett OB here. This is his work, the actual work, and the baseline work with that. So we can go through and show that as we go through. If you don't want to see it as messy, you could take actual work off, and now you're showing just the baseline work and the work, or if you just want to map out. Now this screen is showing daily, as you can see here. You can also come through and show in 3-day increments, in weekly increments, in monthly increments, or even quarterly increments. So you can come through and see the granularity if you're tracking your resources. Now this is an interesting screen, and I'll bring this up in a minute when I log in as a team member, but this is essentially the same spreadsheet as you would get with the Gantt chart. However, an age-old problem in project management is red bars, blue bars, summary bars, precedence relationships. People get confused and don't update their tasks. This gives you an ability to see your tasks and to update the percent complete. So I'll log in as a team member in a minute and you'll see how that works. But I could simply in this screen say that's not 40% complete, it's 60% complete. And then if I scroll over here, you can see the task is 60% complete. So I'll show that in a minute. Resources are also very similar, where you can have rates for the resources. You can come through and make your resource material, work, other, location, etc. Give them rates. Reporting and calendars are also the same. I could take a look at this in a monthly standpoint, a weekly standpoint, or a daily standpoint to see my tasks. So again, the key differences from the desktop to the cloud is this is team and role based. So the dashboard, the portfolio, and then the roles are all different. Now I'm going to log out and log back in as a different user. I'm an administrator. I'm going to log in as Connor OB, who is a project manager, and let's take a look at his view. So if I log out, and then log back in as Connor OB, you're going to see that this has changed. His dashboard is different. He had selected just to have one row with two columns, so he's showing these. His portfolio is only showing these projects. If you recall, there was a project called Project 3 that we put the exec team on. Connor does not see that project, even though he's a project manager, because he's not part of that. And again, he could open, we could open the welcome project again. And again, he sees the percent complete there and everything with that, because everyone can see this project for us. So he has all the capabilities to see all of this and resources, etc. So if I was to log out of Connor as a project manager and log in as Kylie, who is a team member, that was her role. And if I sign in as Kylie, you don't see all of the information anymore. I'm just seeing a few items. And if I click on resources, I don't see the resource pool. I just see Kylie. And so if I was to come through and open a project, Kylie OB is only on two tasks. She does not see the entire project. She just sees the two tasks. Now she can come over, and again, she can say this task is 40% complete, okay? So she's now updated it, and all she could see was her tasks and that information with that project. So if I was to log back out, and this time I'll log in as the other project manager, who was Emmett. And if you recall, Emmett was also on that exec team. So he will actually see the project 3 that we talked about. So if I look at the projects, he sees project 3 because he was part of that project. If I was to open up Kylie's project to see, you can see that she has updated her percent complete on that. So that's the way that runs. I'll do one more, and that is to log in as a resource manager. And with the resource manager, who's Mindy, I will take a look at that. And with the resource manager, all she sees is the resource pool. There's also a portfolio manager, and that's Kelsey, and she would see all the projects as well. So that's what we're doing with this. Let me log back in as the admin and show you as well. So I'm logging back in as the admin. And when I do that, I'm going to go over to the portfolio. And again, what we've done is we've shown you the differences between the desktop and the cloud version. And now we're going to import projects. So this icon here is import. However, before I do that, I'm going to come over to, this is desktop ProjectLibre. It could be Microsoft Project. And I have a project here. I've got tasks, I've got precedence relationships, I've got resources assigned. I actually have a resource pool here, and you can see the resource pool with the names and email addresses. If I go back over to task and the Gantt chart, we can see this, and all of that information is there. This project is contractor import. I'm going to come back over to ProjectLibre Cloud and use the import icon and say import, and there's the contractor import project, and I will open that. Okay, there's two things you can do. This is resource mapping. Okay, leaving unassigned, all of these resources from the desktop project will not be mapped. You'll have to redo that. I can say merge using a particular field. The default is name, but you can see there's still a number of resources that are unassigned. However, I had email addresses. So if a capitalization is there, Olivia Rose has capital O and capital R, so that's fine. If Marco B was not, in fact, correct with all the capitalizations, it wouldn't map. So I'm going to use email address instead. And if I drag email address as my mapping field, you can now see everything is mapped over. That's a key thing. And just to let you know, on some of yours, and I could import another one in a minute, that nothing maps over, but just keep that in mind that you need the correct spelling on that. And so now here is my contractor import project. It's still 30 days long. And if I was to open that, it's that easy. And you've got all of your project information. There are the resources, the precedence relationships, the durations, everything is imported. So again, it's as easy as going into your portfolio, saying import, selecting the project from either Microsoft Project or ProjectLibre Desktop, and importing that. And you can go through and do that. A couple other things to note in regards to the customization. On the dashboard, I showed how you can use this gear and show what the field list is displayed on there. On any of our other spreadsheets, the field lists are there as well. And I could click on the gear and say field list, and this is the default field list. It's name, duration, percent complete, start, finish. If for whatever reason I wanted just another field, let me drag actual cost in there, and then let me put actual work next to name. None of that makes sense. That's fine. And I'll save that. And what you'll see in the background is my spreadsheet has changed. So any of the information you want, you can actually change that. Now, if I want to move actual work to the end, I can go back to my field list, say default, grab actual work, and drag that to the bottom, save that, and now my spreadsheet has changed. So again, to recap, when you first enter ProjectLibre, you may have some sample data here, but effectively your dashboard will be empty. You can come through and define your dashboard, whether it's the columns, the rows, which projects you want to see, or the panels themselves, which you want. You can then indicate which information you want to see in each graph. You can go over to Portfolio and import your current desktop projects, or you can add a project here. And then if you were to do so, you can open the project with this eye, and that brings you over to the project screen. And this is the project that we had actually imported in from the desktop. Resources are their calendar. And again, the key thing is the administration with the roles. So you can have the different roles. You can define them yourselves by cloning existing roles and then changing them. But these are the preset roles for you. If you assign roles to users, it defaults to team member when you create a new user. That way it has less permissions. We wouldn't want to add 50 administrators, so it defaults to this. And again, when you create a user, it also creates a resource in the resource pool for you. But when you're doing that, it's as easy as saying this person's a project manager, not a team member, and you save them. So it's that easy. And then if you are creating teams, you can very easily just say a new team, drag names over there. If Kylie's part of that team, you can drag them over. And again, you can assign teams to projects either in the administrator area, where I can say the team is on that, or you can do it in the portfolio screen, where I could also select a project and select this icon, which is assigned team. So you can do it either way. So if there's any questions, you can email us at info@projectlibre.com. We are showing previews every week, and this is an intro for you to using ProjectLibre Cloud.